Hello friends, welcome back. In this video, I wish to explore which way is science headed today. Has it become a new religion with its own hierarchies of high priests and rituals? Does it acknowledge the human limitations of scientists anymore? Science actually seeks the ultimate reality and universal truth, and yet it often oversimplifies complexity. Also, it accepts no external standard to itself and fanatically defends its turf, quite like what religious orders of the past did. Shouldn't we be seeing scientific inquiry as an open, growing, yet fallible activity that has proven far superior to other methods of problem solving? Let us explore this a little further. I'm reminded of a letter to the editor of the respectable journal Science. This is the journal of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, which is the largest multidisciplinary scientific society in the world and is a leader publishing of cutting-edge research through a whole family of journals which are having the title Science. The association was formed way back in 1848, but its permanence was not preordained. And despite the many contributions that it made during the first 50 years to the field of science, the association came close to extinction more than once. It survived because ultimately it collaborated with the Science Journal, which was founded by none other than the great inventor of all times, Thomas Alva Edison. The letter which I was referring to earlier was sent by Bernie Forscher way back in 1963. Bernie, as he was known as in the scientific circles, was actually Bernard Forscher, and he was the managing editor of the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science of the United States of America, the equivalent of the Royal Society in the United Kingdom. And he was also the head of publications at the Mayo Clinic, a premium institute of research. The letter's title was Chaos in the Brickyard. I am using the illustrated version of this celebrated letter. The illustrations which I am using are simply copied from the blog of another great scientist, Matteo Farinella, who is a neuroscientist from Columbia University. So let us explore this letter in greater depth. I will now read the letter, and it says, once upon a time, among the activities and occupations of man, there was an activity called scientific research, and the performers of this activity were called scientists. In reality, however, these men and women were builders who constructed edifices called explanations or laws. And these laws and explanations were built by assembling bricks called facts. When the bricks were sound and were assembled properly, the edifice was useful and durable, and it brought pleasure and sometimes reward to the builder. If the bricks were faulty, or if they were assembled badly, the edifice would crumble, and this kind of disaster could be very dangerous to the innocent users of the edifice as well as to the builder, who sometimes was destroyed by that collapse. Because the quality of bricks was so important to the success of the edifice, and because the bricks were so scarce in those days, the builders made their own bricks. The making of bricks was difficult and expensive undertaking, and the wise builder avoided waste by making only bricks of the shape and size that were necessary for the enterprise at hand. The builder was guided in his manufacture by a blueprint called a theory or hypothesis. It came to pass that builders realized that they were sorely hampered in their efforts by delays in obtaining bricks. Thus, there arose a new skilled trade known as brickmaking, called the junior scientist, to give that artisan proper pride in his work. This new arrangement was very efficient, and the construction of edifices proceeded with great vigor. Sometimes brickmakers inspired and progressed to the status of builders themselves. In spite of the separation of duties, bricks still were made with care, and usually they were produced only on order. Now and then an enterprising brickmaker was able to foresee a demand, and he would prepare a stock of bricks ahead of time. But in general, brickmaking was done on a custom basis because it was still a difficult and expensive process. And then it came to pass that a misunderstanding spread among the brickmakers. There are, of course, some who say that this is a misunderstanding that developed as a result of careless training of new generation of brickmakers. But the brickmakers became obsessed with making of bricks. When reminded that the ultimate goal was edifices and not bricks, they replied that if enough bricks were available, the builders would be able to select what was necessary and still continue to construct edifices. The flaws in this argument were not readily apparent, and so with the help of the citizens who were waiting to use the edifices yet to be built, amazing things happened. The expense of brickmaking became a minor factor because large sums of money were made available through grants. The time and effort involved in brickmaking was reduced by ingenious automatic machinery. The ranks of the brickmakers were swelled by augmented training programs and intensive recruitment. It even was suggested that the production of a suitable number of bricks was equivalent to the building itself, the edifice, and therefore it should entitle the industrious brickmaker to assume the title of the builder, and with title, the authority. And so it happened that the land became flooded with bricks. It became necessary to organize more and more storage places called journals and more elaborate systems of bookkeeping to record the inventory. In all of this, the brickmakers retained their pride and skill, and the bricks were of the very best quality. But production was ahead of demand, and bricks no longer were made to order. The size and shape was now dictated by changing trends in fashion. In order to compete successfully with other brick makers, production emphasized those types of bricks that were easy to make, and only rarely did an adventurous brickmaker attempt a difficult or unusual design. The influence of tradition in production methods and in types of products became a dominating factor. Unfortunately, the builders were almost destroyed. It became difficult to find proper bricks for a task because one had to hunt among so many. It became difficult to find a suitable plot for construction of an edifice because the ground was covered with loose bricks. It became difficult to complete a useful edifice because as soon as the foundations were discernible, they were buried under an avalanche of random bricks. And saddest of all, sometimes no effort was made even to maintain the distinction between a pile of bricks and a true edifice. So friends, welcome to the post-academic world. Everything has now changed. Big data equates with big science. We have got more volume than depth. Gone are the days when people would theorize. People would collect facts to ascertain whether their data fits with the theory. It's rather the other way around. and everyone is busy mapping ohms. I don't mean that chant of ohm, but we have got different ohms. We have got genomes, we have got microbiomes, we have got proteomes, we have got connectomes. You can think of anything new to attract more dollars, more data, and then help others to drown in that. In this post-academic world, this is the real scenario. This is where our research is now taking us. And that's why we are not able collectively at the global level to find simple solutions for stuff like a pandemic. So friends, this brings me to the end of this presentation, which was actually all about a letter written way back in 1963 by a very brilliant scientist, Bernie Forscher. And what he was telling us, and which we now understand very clearly because everything is so magnified, that once upon a time, scientists could be viewed as builders of edifices. These edifices were theories and laws of nature, of what we saw around us, and tried to explain how things work in our universe. These edifices of theories and laws were built on facts, which scientists themselves collected. Whether it was Newton or Charles Darwin, either those facts were collected by experiment or by observation. These scientists used to collect their own facts or build their own bricks. Then came in the age and era of big data. And those bricks, which were the building material for these laws and theories and hypotheses, were built by their assistants or data collectors. A lot of money was spent into data collection, and naturally the people spending the money wanted returns. So these scientists in the post-academic world started building theories to fit that data. Now the facts are mass-produced, and so are the theories. Gone are the days when we could call it scientific reasoning. Thank you very much for your attention, and we shall meet once again in another video. Until then, bye-bye.